Welcome to episode 56 of Working Towards Our Purpose. In today's episode, we are going to talk about fitting into molds. But before we get into that, I'm going to do a little check-in, as we always do, and check in with yourself, see where you're at today, see how you're feeling. For myself, if I check in, I think I've definitely been pretty hard on myself this week for specific things, and trying to not take that too much to heart, trying to let it pass through me. I know that it's a pattern that I have, so trying to keep moving forward in spite. But I think it's important to kind of see where you're at. So check in with yourself before we get into today's episode. And hopefully you've done that. And now we're going to get into talking about fitting into molds. So I think, we're kind of all brought into this world with some sort of mold, some sort of like idea for our life. Our parents certainly have ideas for us when we first are born. Maybe they want us to be a soccer player or be good at sports or be a musician. Some parents want their kids to be doctors and lawyers and have good jobs and go to college and all this stuff. But I think sometimes we forget that like all these sort of expectations are can be outside influences. And, not only is it like our parents and our friends and stuff, but certainly there's societal expectations of many different things, not even like college and jobs and like what you should be doing to be a good person and, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, but even just like where you're born and what state or what country, what religion and race, there's all these sort of like presets that you have when you're born. And some of them positive, some of them obviously negative. And I think it's important to think about like separating ourselves from that, and or at least just acknowledging that like it's part of circumstance and it doesn't have to be like our story, at least for some things and most things. But another thing that I think sort of creates this mold around us is this is the worst, like advertisers. I can't stand like ads and advertisements and basically influencing people that you need this certain thing, this certain thing's going to make you happy, this thing's going to make your life better, and it's people's jobs to like convince you of that. And regardless of if it actually is or isn't, certainly fast food, it probably isn't making our lives better, but, it's so ingrained into our life. And it's just, I don't know, like you question the intentions of the companies behind the people that are creating these advertisements to make you think certain ways. And even nowadays with social media and influencers, it's interesting that that's the term that we use is influencers, because it's people who influence us that we should be doing this or should be buying this. And it's quite interesting. Like that's like a negative term, influencers, to me. Like it seems like somebody who's influencing you to do something is possibly, I guess it could be a positive influence, but like, I don't know, I guess maybe to me it sounds negative. It's just weird. We have all these things coming externally from all around us, like constantly bombarded with ads every single day. And trying to tell us like, where we should fit in, how we should live, what mold we should be. So in today's episode, I just kind of want to talk about maybe sort of separating yourself from the mold, or realizing like if that mold is for you or not for you. So a couple stories for me come to mind. When I was in elementary school and middle school and even into high school, me and my brother were really into NASCAR, and we pretty much wore NASCAR shirts like every day. And I remember constantly getting made fun of for wearing NASCAR shirts. And most people where I lived in my town just weren't into NASCAR. And for whatever reason, me and my brother really were. And so that's like one sort of thing. Like, I'm not fitting into the mold of like what the other kids like. The other kids liked Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and like all that stuff, but that never interested me. I liked NASCAR. So like when you don't fit in that mold, you could get made fun of. You could be, shown as different. That could negatively affect you. For some reason, the NASCAR one never really did. I kind of just always like laughed, and I was like, "You're playing card games. Like I'm into NASCAR. It's like real life. That's cool." So yeah, not really sure, where that attitude came from, but another example would be like finishing high school and like everybody's going to college. I remember always saying like I was never going to go to college. I didn't like school. I didn't want to further go to school. But yeah, I ended up going to college, and I think it was another sort of just looking at the people around you and, okay, everybody's going to college. What am I going to do? Maybe I don't have a better idea. Maybe I should just do what everybody else is doing because, I can't answer what I want to do, or I didn't spend enough time thinking about what I wanted to do. And so then I ended up going to college, going into corporate America, same sort of thing. I remember just being really confused. And this is like where the mold thing really like started to make sense to me, because especially at my first job, like everybody sort of acted a certain way. They all like, I don't know, they all just like kind of became the same person. Like they all started watching the same TV shows. They all started like buying the same cars. It was really interesting. I literally was in a group where like everybody kept buying the same truck. And it's just interesting how like those things affect you and influence you and the people around you. So yeah, anyways, just being really uncomfortable in that corporate mold because I didn't fit it. And I was trying to like force myself to fit into that mold, but it wasn't working. And finally I did make a change. And then the last sort of story that comes to mind is a recent interaction that I've had with somebody, which kind of spawned the idea for this episode of fitting into molds. And I hadn't seen this person in a while, and we were just sort of having a conversation. He was kind of asking like what I've been up to. So I started like talking about what I was doing, what I was caring about. I was, trying to show up as an authentic version of myself. And, it was just sort of, there was nothing like negative said, but it was sort of the, facial expressions of like, confusion and, the non-participation in the conversation of like what I, kind of was talking about, the lack of like, questioning perhaps of like, or interest, or even just interest in like what I was saying. So it made me feel like I should like change myself, because at the end of the day, we as humans want to be accepted. So especially in real life, it's really hard for me sometimes to show up in the way that I want when I'm, being judged by other people. And this was like a real life example of like telling somebody something, kind of seeing the like disapproval or like confusion in their face. And then that kind of goes into, the non-approving. And then I found myself trying to like back my way out of it and being like, oh, well, here's something like, maybe this will make you feel better. Maybe this will make you feel better. And so anyways, I walked away from the conversation, like not liking how I showed up in the conversation and being sort of frustrated with myself, and mostly being frustrated because I like noticed that disappointment or disapproval from this person. And then I like tried to change myself to make it better for them. And I didn't want to do that. Like, so I thought about it for a while, and I talked about it with some close friends, and it came down to like a mold thing. And I keep using this word mold because it just is a visual representation. But like, I didn't fit the mold of what this person had in their head, and vice versa, maybe. He probably maybe didn't fit like how I would want to live my life, but, and that's okay, because we all have different molds, and we should have different molds. Like we shouldn't all be the same person. And I think where I sort of, where it sort of made sense for me is when I put myself in their shoes and was just confused because what I was saying didn't make sense to them. And, like that, again, goes back to like the mold thing. Like I wasn't fitting into this mold, so therefore they were confused. And then I took the confusion as like disapproval, even if it may not have been. It could have just been pure confusion. But yeah, it's just interesting how we all kind of have these ideas of like how people should show up or what people should be doing or what people shouldn't be doing. So yeah, it just really made me think more about how sometimes if you are a person who doesn't fit the mold of like what everybody else is doing, right? I don't have, this corporate job in the degree that I went to school for. That could confuse some people and that can make people disapprove of what I'm doing, but that's okay. Cause that's what their mold is. And I'm creating my own mold right now. I'm figuring out what my own mold is. So today in this episode, I want to challenge you to like take ownership of your own mold and to think about that. Like if I thought about myself when I was still working my corporate job, I ended up there because of decisions that I made for other people. They weren't my own decisions. They weren't really what I wanted to do. I mean, I knew in high school I didn't want to go to college. So where I led myself was a place that I wasn't really happy with. So I would tell that person like to take ownership of your own mold. And how do we do that? I think, again, it kind of comes back to like decision making we talked about in the previous two episodes, in episode 54 and 53. Had to do some math in my head real quick. But in the decision making, like, when you're even if you're like deciding to buy something or deciding to go for a career or a job or start a business, I think there's sort of a couple different things that like you can do. So I've like 4 things in my notes here. And the first step is to realize that you can be different, because I think the pressure of being different sometimes causes people to make decisions that they don't really want to make. And just realizing like, having the authority to make your own decisions and to be different is okay. I think it's a strong suit. I think it's a good thing to be your own unique individual. You don't have to be like everybody else. I think we all crave that at the end of the day. But maybe we don't. Next thing is like, if you're thinking about, what are your own desires versus somebody else's desires. And, if we take an example, like buying a car, if you're going to buy a car, like maybe you can ask yourself, like, why am I buying this car? Why do I want this car? And if it kind of comes back to like, well, this other person has this car and they liked it, or maybe it's a status symbol. Maybe I want somebody to think that I have money, or, if those are the reasons as to why you're buying a car, well, maybe those aren't your own desires. Maybe you can challenge yourself and think more like, well, what are my own desires? What do I really want? Another thing, the third thing, would be values, and like, what are your own values? And this is something that I keep coming back to also, is like, what are your values? I think it can be easy to think of other people's values as your values. And, especially if you don't like put some time to thinking about what your own values are, you could easily like think that maybe your values are somebody else's values. But, if you practice thinking about like what your values are, like are the decisions that you're making in alignment with your own values? And then I think the last thing would be your own intuition, using your own intuition. And again, this can be confused with other people's voices. We all have voices in our heads of our parents, of society. How can you differentiate between those voices and the intuition that you have? And in my experience, when you have sort of thoughts and you're thinking about something and it's very loud and, it's like there's a sense of urgency to it, and it's like a thought that like keeps coming up, and it's not necessarily your intuition. And for me, my intuition comes very quietly, and it comes when I'm still and rested, and quiet. It kind of like just sneaks in. It's like a little voice that kind of whispers, and that to me is my intuition. Whereas if like I'm sort of panicky about something and I'm trying to make a decision quick, and there's a voice in my head that's like loud yelling at me to do this, that's usually not my voice. It's usually somebody else's. So trying to differentiate between your intuition and your other voices that could be possibly going around in your head. And then also now, I'm just thinking about it now, we can add a fifth to this list of trying to figure out whether it's us or from outside of us, is fear versus like faith or trust. I think a lot of times when we make decisions based off of fear, it's also leads us to sort of fall into other people's molds and the things that you are familiar with. So if you're sort of acting out of fear, it could be easy to make a decision that is maybe somebody else's, comes externally. If I'm thinking of like going to college, that decision for me was made out of fear because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So, I at first thought like, I'm not going to go to college, but as it gets closer, as there's more pressure that builds, and it's like, what are you going to do with your life? I think I acted out of fear and decided to go to college just based on the other people around me. And I think it can become easy to kind of just look to see what everybody else is doing when you're acting in a state of fear, and not rely on your own self, your own intuition, your own values, your own desires. So yeah, I think that this is just something that kind of came up for me this week, and I think it's important to say that, you don't have to fit the mold of everybody else, and it's okay to design your own mold and to design your own life, and to, find your own happiness within that, because I think that it becomes pretty hard to find happiness when you are trying to fit into somebody else's mold. So yeah. And another thing I want to add on top of that too, is that we do all have the power to create our own life and our own mold and our own decisions that make us happy. And, I think the more we look externally for answers, the more confusion, is set upon us. At least it was for me. So there's one other thing that I was trying to think about that slipped my mind as I was talking. I'm trying to see if it can come back before I have to end this. Oh yes, the last thing is that I think that when you decide to not fit into other people's molds, you will be challenged, and you will have people who either look at you confused and kind of disapprovingly, or some people that even just like make fun of you and, tell you that you're wrong, and are threatened by the way that you live your life. And that's okay. Like, I think that that's just kind of something to note, because I've noticed that, like, you tell somebody what you're doing, and if it doesn't fit into like a really simple answer, oh, I'm an engineer, I work at this, I'm a lawyer, I do this, then, people have opinions. And I think I would say that, like, if you're finding like that resistance in communicating with people and telling people what you're doing and that sort of thing, I would say some advice is, don't take anything too seriously from somebody who you aren't very close with and don't know that they care about you, because their opinions at the end of the day, and you can easily let them affect you, because it hurts when somebody's like rude to you or mean, but I try to only value the opinions of people that I know that care about me and that I'm close with, and those people certainly never intentionally try to belittle me. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, I think sometimes when you don't fit into people's molds, that you will find resistance, and to not take it personally, and to just know that, other people are living their own lives, and you can just kind of focus back in on what you're doing and not focus on anything, that they're trying to maybe take away from you. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. And thank you for listening as always. Thank you for watching on YouTube, and I will see you in another episode real soon. Take care.